Well, firstly, thank you very much for the welcome. It is actually my first time in Belgrade, so it's great to be here. I think when we talk about IoT, sometimes this word scares some people. I think what we have to think about is everything in the world, slowly but surely, is acquiring sensors. So IoT is really about bringing together the physical and the digital world. So if we think about a car, if we think about an air conditioning system, if we think about an aeroplane, if we think about your phone even, it's a physical thing which has sensors inside of it, and all of those things are generating data. And what we're doing with IoT is we're utilizing that data to drive new value, to deliver new insights and to offer new services. So, for example, a layman might see IoT in their life when they go to a bus stop. They may see how long it's going to take for the bus to arrive, and that would be enabled by GPS, a sensor being placed on a bus so that we know exactly where the bus is and when it's going to arrive. We might see, for example, people in the consumer space with watches that track where they've been and what they've done. We see Fitbit with a lot of those sorts of devices, Microsoft with its Microsoft Band. And we may see, for example, preventative medicine solutions where we can remotely monitor patients and help them to see if they need to go into the doctor or the hospital rather than having them physically turn up. So I think that the Internet of Things is really about making people's lives better. I think it's really about making organizations more efficient, and I think it's really about bridging this gap between the physical analog world and the digital world that we're operating in today. You know, I think most common people don't really care much about big data or big data analytics. I think if we look at the market in general, the word big data, there's a lot of confusion still. I think the definition that sticks in a lot of people's mind is what we call the 3 V's, volume, velocity, and variety. Now, let's just dig into that for a common person. Volume is really about how we're seeing more and more data today than we've ever seen before. You know, every click on a website, every search on Facebook, every movement nowadays is generating data. In fact, you know, even parking your car in a car park can generate data. So we've got this massive amount of data that's now arriving into businesses. Then we can talk about variety. Variety is really about the types of data that we're generating. You know, a lot of data that we used to see generated was generated inside of companies from their business processes. Now we're seeing people posting things on Twitter, on Facebook, so textual data. We're seeing a move to data coming from sensors, from mobile phones, GPS data. So this is the variety angle. So just this very broad range of data that we can leverage. And then we've got the velocity angle, right? So again, if I'm on my mobile phone and I'm asking some questions, I expect an answer very, very quickly. I'm not prepared to sit and wait. So we've got these 3 V's, and these 3 V's really sum up what's happening. This massive increase of data, different types, and it's coming faster. And the response times are expected to really change. Now, if we take that to the next step, what does that really mean for the layman? It really means more value to them. So what we're trying to do is deliver a 4th V, which is value, deliver new services, new insights. And what that really means for businesses is they have to get a handle on all 3 of those V's to be able to deliver the value. So when I think about big data, and when I look at it, I don't just think about volume, I think about all of these different types. And I focus very much on what's the value and the new services that we can be delivering. So again, going back to a layman, this could be things like walking into a bank and having the bank better know you so that you get the service that you want much quicker without having to always explain. It could be, for example, if you're taking things out of your fridge, automatically populating a shopping list so that you can know what you might need to go and buy next time. So I think that we're going to see that sort of thing. And, you know, I mentioned earlier the idea of data being generated now just by parking your car in a car park. Here we see people using video technology and heat mapping so that they can tell, hey, we've got a lot of people in our car park now, we need to put more people on the checkouts in the stores so that they will get through and pay for their goods quicker. So I think big data is going to make people's lives on a consumer side better as well. But I think where we'll really see a lot of forwards movement is on the business side. And again, that also ties in with IoT. A lot of examples of IoT today our consumer base, a Fitbit watch, your mobile phone. But I think the real drive and the real benefit's going to be when we can connect people, process, and technology inside of companies, bring their physical assets together with their business processes and drive new value, new services, and new business models. In short, I think the answer is yes. However, let me just qualify that. So when we think about big data, and we go back always to the three V's, because I think it just helps to encapsulate things. It's possible to have sensors that are only sending data once a day, and that's not high volume. It's not necessarily massive amounts of variety, but it could be very, very valuable. And that's what we see with things like remote monitoring solutions, where we might just be sending the location of a refrigerator every half a day or every few hours. It's not massive volume. So in that case, you can get value from IoT without needing necessarily massive amounts of big data, massive amounts of volume, variety, or the velocity of data arrival. However, having said that, I think that the revolutionary solutions that we're going to see definitely will tie into one or more of those V's. And I think that you'll either be seeing solutions that are bringing huge quantities of data that you then need to mine through the use of analytics to actually find the hidden information and find the hidden patterns to give the right response, or we'll be seeing a tremendous speed of data coming in that we have to react to very quickly, so quickly in fact that you can't store it before you react to it. So I think that it can operate independent, but I think that the really revolutionary solutions will probably be a confluence of big data with analytics, with some of this sensor and network technology that we're seeing in the IoT world. So I think actually if we look at analytics, there's a continuum of analytics. There's kind of analytics that people describe as backwards looking. So hey, tell me how many of these I sold last week, or how many of these I've got in stock. And then there's analytics that's more forwards looking, and the predictive type analytics that we talk about. Things like forecast the sales for next week, or given these constraints, what's the best that I can achieve, which is more the optimization side of things. So we've got this continuum of analytics, and many of the areas of analytics have been around for a long time. I think what's starting to change when we talk about big data and analytics is in the past, storing all of the data and analyzing all of the data wasn't very possible. It was too expensive either to store the data, you couldn't put it all possibly into a database, or the type of data that was there was not the type that could go in a database. It could be unstructured data, it could be video files, it could be audio files, it could be lots of different things. Then if we start thinking about the hardware, okay, to process all this data very quickly would have required extremely expensive hardware. So we've got the hardware, the software costs, we've got the change in the landscape, if you like, of the type of data. And then we've got the speed at which the data is coming in, which means you can't afford anymore to spend hours and hours crunching through data. So I think at the heart of it, the techniques in use haven't changed too much as we talk about analytics. I think what's changed is the way that we can now do distributed analytics, that we can run analytics in memory, that we can use cheap storage, that we have cloud solutions you can spin up without having to massively invest in very expensive infrastructure. The commoditization of that infrastructure, along with open source projects such as R, have really changed the analytics landscape, I think. And that's tied in very much as well with a movement where people are expecting more personalized services. And that's what analytics is really driving. So for me, I think the real difference is the environment that we're operating in is now much bigger. It can scale at a price point that's much more sensible. And data that previously we may have ignored, we're now looking at. And then beyond that, there's one more thing. And that's a move. In the past, we used to structure our data and store it and then ask questions of it. And I think in the big data world, the idea is somewhat there to more or less land the data and then structure the data as you need it, so that you can ask almost any question of it, not the ones that you only thought about when you were building the data store. So in some ways, if we think about big data, it's about the change that's happened between storing traditional data in a relational database, querying that, running analytics on top of that, to really broadening that to everything that you've got using many different mathematical techniques that scale very well on commodity hardware or in the cloud at a sensible price point. You know, it's very interesting. I talk to a lot of countries and I get this question, hey, we're a small market, a small country, maybe we don't feel so advanced in information technology. But in fact, one of the things that's changing in our world in digitization is our borders are more or less now evaporating. And if we look at countries such as Serbia or other small countries, there's massive potential. There's potential that people come from outside and offer those services. So if people in Serbia don't step up and start digitizing and offering those services, people will just take them coming from outside. The way that I would really come and think about it, though, is big data. The word big is what makes people in Serbia maybe think, hey, that's not for us. The word lots of IT knowledge makes people think it's not for them. But I think if you look at technologies today, you can spin up a cloud-based big data platform in minutes. You don't need tons of experience and skills. You can utilize data, you know, very, very quickly. And if we go back to our Vs, it's not all about generating lots of data. Of course, you may have lots of data, and in the future, that will be very valuable. But you may also have smaller amounts of data, but you might want to do simple things like make citizens' lives better by putting a GPS sensor on the bus so you can tell them exactly when it's going to arrive. You may want to start offering different types of services that very much fit into the Serbian market here on the industrial side of things. So for me, you know, I do see potential, and DunavNet, who's co-hosting this conference, is a partner of ours, and they're very active in Serbia, working in the agricultural area, for example. And what they're doing is they're working with farmers on their farms, and they're putting moisture sensors in the ground, and they're helping them know when they have to irrigate, so that they're not just watering for the sake of watering, but they're doing it in an optimized fashion based on, you know, how dry the ground is and based off of the actual weather forecast that's upcoming. So we already see Serbian entrepreneurs getting onto the IoT, big data and analytics bandwagon, and I think ultimately every company inside of Serbia, even those that are manufacturing things, will become a software company focused on the use of big data analytics, and I do think IoT as well, to deliver new services. You know, at Microsoft, our view is we want to empower every person, every organization to do more. And I think, you know, even if I look at Serbia, that holds very true. I think, you know, the way the human race is moving and the types of services we're going to expect means this market has to transform. Whether it moves slightly slower and you get more outside companies coming in, or whether people move quickly and, you know, local Serbian companies dominate that market, is very much down to the local IT community.
Mr. Torr, thank you very much.
Thank you.